Tom Holland is starring in a new stage play production in London of Romeo and Juliet. And his co-star playing Juliet happens to be black. She also happens to be, as far as consensus on the internet goes, unsightly. Not fortunate looking, okay? I'll just leave it at that. And there has been a lot of discourse about that casting decision. And unfortunately, you know, the girl has been getting a lot of hate, and that's sad. I think that she shouldn't be on the internet at this time. But some people are having justifiable concerns because it's like we see a race swap in pretty much every adaptation of an existing story at this point, whether it's in the box office or a stage play. It's more common in theater companies.
It's far more common in
actually.
theater companies because back in the day, women weren't allowed to be on stage, so men had to do the men's and the women's roles.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, now we're just boomeranging like all the way back to that paradigm. So you can see a picture of her here. Are there any other pictures we can show?
I've got, yes. Here we go.
Just to get the point across. Yeah, there she is. Okay.
Somebody did point out, they said, I've never seen her and Dom Lucra in the same place at the same time.
It's just, you know, not someone that I would want to pay to look at for an extended period of time. I'm just going to say that. And everyone really, pretty much that's the consensus on that. Not like anyone even cares or was even going to go to this play. We're only hearing about it because Tom Holland is in it, obviously.
Look, my problem with this is the media is running with the race angle. I don't believe this is about race. I believe this is because people don't like the way she looks. I think that the race is a cope from
if it
from
were
the media.
A black actress who is exceptionally beautiful,
this already
or even
exists,
just average
okay?
looking, I don't think anyone would care.
There was a masterpiece made in the year 2000. It was called Romeo Must Die, starring Jet Li and Aaliyah. Aaliyah, beautiful, okay? Granted, it's not actually, it's a modern take on Romeo and Juliet, but the point being that that Han and her character come from different families, different worlds, and everyone loved that. Okay, that's a huge stretch. I love that movie. A lot of people love that movie, but this already exists and nobody cared because Aaliyah was one of the biggest stars of her time, and she was beautiful. And I see this stuff, and the only thing I really care about is the fact that the media is making it about race, and then the people complaining about it seem to be exclusively making it about how she looks, which proves that everyone's just talking at each other and not actually working to get to the heart of what the problem is, because I don't think there should be a problem here at all anyways, because nobody was going to see it in the first place.
They're like, I'm canceling my flights.
Not a single person who is complaining.
I'm getting a refund because I was planning to go to this staged production, and now I found out that they cast a black actress and I'm not going anymore. Like, that's not a thing.
You were never doing that.
Here's the point. They're not comparing it to Romeo Must Die.
No.
They're comparing it to the 1996 Romeo and Juliet that was directed by Baz Luhrmann, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes, obviously both white actors. And I see this headline, Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet becomes a racist rallying cry after a black woman was cast in the stage revival. Mm-hmm. So it's turning into more DEI discourse, basically. And that's understandable. However, I will just say, compare this to the Snow White situation, right? They cast a Latina as Snow White who has a very clear and distinct physical appearance described in the original story and in the original film adaptation.
There's a
but I looked into... Oh, Corey Anderson said the basketball American Juliet looks like Rudy Huxtable. I don't. Okay. But apparently Juliet did not have a physical description that was very specific in Shakespeare. This says, Romeo's frequent remarks about her brightness suggest she may have fair skin. However, specific details about her hair and eye color or other physical features are not given in the text. The only thing that we know is that she's very beautiful, which... this would be a deviation from the text since I'm sorry, this actress is not beautiful.
Well, then they're going to give you with the, well, who are you to decide what's beautiful
Beauty
anyway?
is subjective. You can't just decide who is beautiful and who's not. Beauty is subjective.
Look,
no.
The other example I want to give in this example is, In 2008, I tweeted about it earlier this week. There was a show called Merlin, which I adored. It was a lot of fun. And Guinevere in that is race swapped by an actress named Angel Colby. And it's a lot of fun, and nobody had a problem with it at a time. And that's because back in 2008, there was just less examples of Hollywood celebrities and producers virtue signaling about what it meant to race swap a character.
Okay.
Right? So people didn't feel as rubbed raw as they do now to these types of race swaps, because back then it wasn't talked about. It was just done.
This reminded me of the Annie reboot
Yes.
in 2014.
And yeah,
That was before, I guess, really the culture war was being talked about. But I do remember there being some discourse about race swaps.
It's funny, the pilot episode of the show Boston Legal is about a mom coming in to get this law firm to take her case that her daughter, who was black, was not allowed to play Annie.
What year was that?
2004, I think.
That's crazy.
And it had, yeah.
And then here we are like 10 years later, and then another 10 years
That's
later, and now
20 years later.
You really can't find a character who's not being race swapped at this point. But I don't know. I feel like if this point has come up before, but we're like, I mean, shouldn't you be insulted that you're being hired for your race?
They're not. She's not
But
looking
they're
at this
not
because this
looking
is so
at it that
common.
way.
It's so common in the theater that it's just it's the typical practice. So I don't think she has a reason to feel upset about this because it's so normal. Denzel Washington has done this plenty of times. There's just no reason for her to be upset about it. I just don't think that there's a reason for the people on Twitter to be upset about it either, because they're not going to see it anyways. But again,
No,
I could be on the wrong side of this.
Someone tweeted about
this. Could just be one of those things where I'm just in a bad mood, so I find the whole discourse repetitive and annoying.
It is repetitive and annoying, and you're in a bad mood.
Yes.
But like, I saw someone tweet about this and say, looks like another box office bomb.
It's not going to theaters.
Like, that's the point. It's no one is actually looking into any of the details. They just see like race swap. Let me add in my 2 cents to the culture war discourse. It's totally not an unoriginal.
I can't bring myself to
like
do it, dude.
It's an opinion that someone else gave you.
I want to read you this. Here's the description of the 2004 pilot to the show Boston Legal. It says, senior partner Edwin Poole has a nervous breakdown in front of everybody. Denny Crane is now to face the loss of a friend in the office. Meanwhile, Alan Shore finds a new enemy in Brad Chase, who is not only the ex of Sally, but also makes him work on a case with a little girl who wants to play Annie in a musical production. Laurie is taking care of him. So the whole point is they get into it, and guess who's in this besides just the stars of the show? If you go down to the cast, good old Al Sharpton makes an appearance in this, where he actually goes
Number one race hustler.
He goes into the courtroom and gives a whole sermon.
Oh boy!
Because Annie was not allowed. She did because and the actress who played the mom, I believe it was Aisha Hines, who's a very successful actress, goes in there and does that. And at the end they say, look, because Annie's adopted by,
she could be
Daddy
any
Warbucks,
race.
she could be any race, and that's what they end up deciding at the end.
And because there's no physical description of Juliet in Shakespeare,
Exactly.
that specifically says she is white, then it's acceptable for us to use this loophole. I understand exactly why people are mad about it, and I sympathize, but at the same time, it's just so repetitive at this point.
I just say, like what I look at is like, how do you want to spend your energy? Like, how do you want to expend your energy? Like, is this the thing? Like, wait for the next movie that pisses you off. So right after this was when they got when they announced the Silver Surfer has been gender swapped to do the girl who's only been in like 4 issues and an alternate timeline. Whereas like Norrin Rad, who's been the Silver Surfer forever, is not being used. People get upset about that. Fine, right? And I'm only saying that because that's like the movies. That's what people care about. It's more likely that the people on Twitter would be likely to see the Fantastic Four movie than they were to go to a London stage play.
Yeah, what pisses me off more than the race swap itself or the casting decision is that there are a bunch of virtue signaling people commenting on it saying, "What are you talking about? She's beautiful." Like, I saw this comment that says, she's actually so pretty. What's their problem? And they just posted other pictures of her looking equally as unattractive.
Yeah.
And then someone replied saying, the problem is Juliet is not black. And then they responded, she's also not a gnome, but Romeo and Juliet was made. Like, it's just so pedantic and pointless. Yeah. And then someone else said she's even more mid than Zendaya. Like, okay, she's not even mid. This isn't even mid discourse because she's obviously below even average in looks. But then, like, I also saw on the timeline at the same time a video of Zendaya looking beautiful where it captioned it, "Seriously, dudes who find Zendaya attractive should be on a watch list." Like, really?
It's this video right here.
Yeah.
Is there music in this?
No.
I typically don't like doing things like this because I'm very anxious and uncomfortable when I'm getting ready, very quiet. So if I'm over talkative, that's because I'm anxious.
Chat.
Like, look, she's obviously attractive and also more attractive than usual because she is like all done up in this.
Yes.
I guess they're saying that dudes who find Zendaya attractive should be on a watch list. It's kind of implying you should be on a watch list because she has small boobs.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're trying to imply.
Like, when a lot of this is like, when these arguments happen online, I just think about how this woman, I don't know anything about her. I don't know what her beliefs are, but I know that it's not going to, like, she's just going to become more of the opposite of whatever you want her to be because you're subjecting her to all this discourse. The same thing happens all the time. The same topics are happening right now where they're talking about how, like, right-wing Twitter just pushes women away. And then everybody just pushes everyone away to the opposite side because there's no ability to moderate yourself and say, is this the fight that I need to fight today? Is this the battle that I need to fight today? Again, I'm just saying, if this is your thing, if you're a theater buff and this really bothers you, that's one thing. But most of the time, people just drive.
I doubt that.
Most people just drive by a topic. It pisses them off a little bit, and then they're on to the next thing. And I guess maybe I'm a hypocrite, but to me, like at least on the internet, like, I just don't do that. Like, I don't have the ability to do that.
I think it's important to pay attention to how this goes down because it looks like they're mirroring the same exact story that happened with Moses Ingram, who played Reva in the Kenobi show for Disney Plus. Where Disney released this big statement and all of the co-stars on Kenobi released their statements about how we're denouncing the racist Star Wars fans who don't like Reva's character, and they're claiming it's because she's black and she was posting all of these mean comments that she was getting on her Instagram and just drawing more attention to it than it ever needed to be, and in the process kind of embarrassing themselves. So the production company that earlier just this morning posted an official statement denouncing all of these comments. Here's their statement from the company. Following the announcement of our Romeo and Juliet cast, there has been a barrage of deplorable racial abuse online directed towards a member of our company. They didn't even name her. This must stop. We are working with a remarkable group of artists. We insist they are free to create work without facing online harassment. We will continue to support and protect everyone in our company at all costs. Any abuse will not be tolerated and will be reported. Bullying and harassment have no place online. In our industry...
Okay, this is the most delusional take I've ever heard in my entire life.
They're British, okay? Yeah. Bullying and harassment have no place online in our industry or in our wider communities. Our rehearsal room is full of joy, compassion, and kindness. We celebrate the extraordinary talent of our incredible collaborators. The Romeo and Juliet community will continue to rehearse with generosity and love and focus on the creation of our production.
You don't get to decide that there's just no hate or bullying on the internet. If you want to be on the internet, that's what's going to happen.
They're British, so I believe that they think cyberbullying is a crime.
It's also a completely disingenuous post anyways, because if anyone read most of this discourse, it had nothing to do with the color of her skin and had everything to do with how people perceived her looks.
I think it did have something to do with the color of her skin, actually.
I think the argument is then which one was more of a focus of the discourse, and I don't think it was the color of her skin. I think it was I think that pales in comparison to people just saying, this girl is ugly.
I think casting someone who is obviously not beautiful is just adding insult to injury when it comes to politicized race swaps, but...
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.